Winter in the Rocky Mountains is something truly special. The crisp mountain air, the quiet stillness of fresh snow, and the way the sun hits the peaks in the morning. It feels like stepping into a postcard. In this episode, we're taking you to our favorite mountain town, Estes Park, Colorado, for a week of exploring this winter wonderland. Join us as we hike snow-covered trails in the Rocky Mountain National Park, go horseback riding through the snow, explore downtown Estes Park, and take a road trip across the mountains for an unforgettable snowmobiling adventure deep in the Rockies. So grab your gloves and a warm drink and join us as we explore what makes winter in Colorado so magical. We stayed in a small rental cabin tucked right up against the base of a mountain, surrounded by pine trees and a thick blanket of snow. We had no neighbors, and there was little traffic on the road nearby. Our cabin was peaceful and cozy, the kind of place where we could just relax with a cup of hot chocolate or coffee and watch the snow fall outside. During our visit, the temperatures were consistently below zero, with the coldest we saw being negative 23 degrees Fahrenheit. Our cabin made for the perfect home base for a week of exploring the Rockies in the heart of winter. There was a small hiking trail at the back of our cabin that we explored when the weather cleared up, but the real adventures were waiting just a short drive away. Estes Park sits at the eastern entrance of the Rocky Mountain National Park, about an hour and a half northwest of Denver. In winter, it's quieter and calmer than during the busy summer season, but every bit as beautiful.
We entered the national park through the Beaver Meadows entrance station and drove as far west as we could on Trail Ridge Road. The Scenic Highway is the only paved road in this section of the Rockies that crosses the mountain range and reaches the western side of the park. This route is closed due to weather each year from mid-October to the following May.
When we reached the winter closure point, we turned around and began our descent back down the mountain. From there, we headed south on Bear Leg Road, driving through the wide open valleys near Moraine Park. Continuing farther south in the park, we made our way to Sprague Lake, one of the few scenic stops open year-round. A 3/4-mile accessible trail circles the lake, complete with benches where you can pause, take a breath, and soak in the surrounding mountain views. After finishing the loop around the lake, we continued south, eventually making our way to the trailhead at the end of Bear Lake Road. We hiked one of the snow-covered paths near Bear Lake, which wound through quiet pine forests and led us to a frozen lake surrounded by stunning peaks. Every once in a while, the wind picked up from across the lake, whipping up the loose snow into a mini blizzard around us. When the wind settled back down, the silence of winter hiking here was amazing. All we heard was the crunch of our boots and the soft sound of wind through the trees.
The deep snow here was perfect for snow angels, so we each made one, and of course we couldn't leave without first having a quick snow fight.
Snowball fight.
It didn't take long before we both were covered in snow and laughing like kids again. After a morning of hiking and playing in the powdery snow, we made our way back into town for our next adventure, something neither of us had ever done before in the snow.
One of the highlights of our time in Estes Park was going horseback riding in the snow at Elkhorn Stables, located in the foothills just a few miles from the downtown area. When we arrived, the weather was quiet and gray, with just a few snowflakes drifting down. After checking in, we saddled up and climbed onto our horses, while the snow continued to fall lightly around us. Our guide was incredibly friendly and knowledgeable, sharing stories about the area and the horses as we rode. As we made our way onto the trail, the snowfall picked up a bit, and we zigzagged through the winding paths as fresh snow settled across the valley. The trail carried us through wide open meadows with stunning mountain views in every direction.
We were actually the only riders out that afternoon, which made the experience even more special. It felt like we had the entire valley to ourselves. The horses were steady and sure-footed in the snow, though every now and then they surprised us with a quick sprint and added a little excitement to the ride.
You got the slow one, Liz. Or not. Whoa, 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 whoa.
Our trip through the mountain trails lasted about 2 hours, giving us plenty of time to settle into the experience and take in all the beautiful scenery around us.
Partway through our trip, the clouds began to thin overhead, and the snowfall eased. The landscape felt bright and peaceful, quiet except for the soft crunch of hooves against the snow. We stopped in a clearing for a quick break to take photos on horseback, but by then the snowfall had picked back up again. As we looped back toward the stables, dark snow clouds gathered over a nearby mountain, and we finished the ride just before the weather worsened.
If you ever visit Estes Park in winter, horseback riding might not be the first thing that comes to mind, but it was a truly memorable way to experience the Rockies.
After all of our outdoor adventures earlier in the day, we spent the later afternoon back in civilization. We explored the central Estes Park area and found that Lake Estes, a large man-made reservoir on the eastern side of town, was frozen over solid. There was a park here that provided a great view of the lake and nearby mountains. I tested my luck by venturing out onto the ice to see how thick it was.
The downtown area of Estes Park has a small but charming main street lined with boutique shops, local art galleries, and cozy cafes. The snow-covered rooftops and glowing holiday lights reminded us of a Thomas Kincaid Christmas painting. You might even see deer wandering through town. We walked around for a while, checked out a few local stores and restaurants, and yes, even in the cold, we couldn't resist stopping for ice cream.
It is 31 degrees out, and Liz is eating ice cream.
I requested it. As evening set in, the lights came on along the main street and the entire town lit up with a cozy warmth.
The next morning, we left the cabin before sunrise, knowing we had a long drive ahead of us. We were heading toward the city of Winter Park, on the far side of the Front Range Mountains, for the last part of our Colorado adventure. With Trail Ridge Road closed for the winter, we knew we'd have to take the longer route south to Interstate 70 and west through Berthoud Pass. But just when we thought we had our route planned out, US Highway 40, the main road leading into Winter Park, was closed due to an avalanche. That meant a big detour, continuing west on Interstate 70 to the town of Silverthorne, and then circling around the mountains on smaller roads.
Our unexpected detour added several hours to the drive, but it was hard to complain with views like these. Traffic on the interstate was slow going at times, but the scenery around us was beautiful. The roads were covered in snow and ice, but we had no problems driving here other than our windshield getting dirty.
The route carried us up and over the Continental Divide through the Eisenhower Tunnel, the longest tunnel and the highest point in the U.S. interstate highway system. On the downhill side, we exited the highway and passed through the small mountain town of Silverthorne before continuing on along winding roads through the high country.
By the time we finally had reached Winter Park, it was the early afternoon and we were ready for one more big adventure.
We signed up for a 3-hour snowmobiling expedition that took us high up into the mountains near Winter Park. And thanks to the road closures, we ended up being the only riders that day, which meant we had the trails and the entire mountain completely to ourselves.
Good? Woo! Woo!
Liz and I set out onto the trails, the rumble of our engines the only sound in the otherwise quiet of the surrounding forest. Not far from the trailhead, we reached a 4-way intersection. Continuing straight, the trail narrowed and began winding through a heavily wooded section of forest. Snow-laden evergreens closed in around us as we headed north and higher up into the mountains. After a short trek, the trail emerged into a wide open clearing at Hourglass Meadows. Here, the trees gave way to open space, and we were able to ride off the main trail within a designated free riding area. With no one else around, we spent time carving through fresh powder and taking in the stillness of the high mountain meadow. This was a fun change of pace from the straight and narrow trails we took to get here. After a bit of fun in the meadow, Liz and I turned back and worked our way south, returning to the intersection and now taking the second trail, beginning the southern leg of the route. The trail traced the contour of the mountain, alternating between enclosed forest and short exposed sections along the slope, the mountains appearing and disappearing as the trail curved along the hillside. This section climbed steadily through a series of switchbacks, each turn carrying us higher up the mountainside. The views got better with every gain in elevation, layers of snow-covered peaks stretching way off into the distance.
This was a surreal experience, 3 hours of riding through fresh snow, stopping at overlooks with panoramic views of the mountains, and realizing there wasn't another person around for miles. It was just the two of us in the quiet stillness of winter.
Many of these trails follow the path of an old railroad that once crossed these mountains prior to the construction of a tunnel in 1928. Along the route, we passed the remnants of a train trestle at Rifle Sight Notch, one of the last reminders of a bygone era. We continued a little farther south on the trail to reach our final destination, another broad clearing known as Coronable, high up on the mountain. Sitting just south of Mount Epworth and just west of the ridgeline that marks the Continental Divide, this area felt vast and exposed, with uninterrupted views in nearly every direction. We spent time here riding and taking in the scenery, despite the open field allowing strong winds to chill us to the bone.
It is very cold up here at the top of the mountain.
I managed to tip over my snowmobile in the deep snow, but Liz hurried over to check on it. In the late afternoon, we began our descent back down the mountain. The setting sun caught the snow kicked up behind our machines as we followed the trail downhill. By the time we returned, the sun was slipping behind the surrounding peaks, casting long shadows across the snow and bringing the day to a quiet close.
It was peaceful, exhilarating, and honestly one of the most memorable experiences we've ever had. Between the scenery, the solitude, and the sheer fun of racing each other through the fresh snow, it was the perfect way to wrap up our Colorado winter trip.
From quiet trails in the Rocky Mountain National Park to snowy horseback rides, cozy mountain towns, and wide-open adventures on snowmobiles, this trip reminded us how magical Colorado can be in the winter.
Thanks for joining us for this episode of The Adventures of Liz and Joe. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and join us next time as we keep exploring the beautiful places around the world, one adventure at a time.